Hello, I'm Terry High, founder and CEO of the Chelsea Project. I founded this organization for my daughter, Chelsea Ray. She's 27 years old now. She's a mother of three, ages 3, 4, and 8. She's a graduate of the Dorsey program as a certified medical assistant. Before the onset of her psychosis, she worked part time with her fiance, Eric Spangler, at Teddy's Landscaping. During the process of buying a home, she began showing signs of mental illness. She was up all hours of the night, walking around outside, half dressed, believing that her accounts were all in the negative and that all of her kids were going to die and everything was screwed up. After coming over to my house a couple of times, going over to her house a couple of times and trying to talk some sense into her, on August 19th, she came over to our home and she was beyond help. So on August 20th, Chelsea was taken to Beaumont emergency room in Taylor for the onset of severe psychosis. She was transferred to Stonecrest and she started having seizures. Stonecrest couldn't handle her seizures, so they transferred her to Ascension St. John's. And through her time there, they tried every medication possible. They had 3 different doctors do second opinions, and none of them could figure out what was wrong with her. At one point, they suggested electroshock therapy, which at that point I was completely against. I began working on getting guardianship of Chelsea at the hospital's recommendation, which thankfully I did. And I began looking into her condition myself. I got a copy of the DSM-5 and started looking up all of her symptoms, which pointed directly to some form of schizophrenia. She was having bouts of catatonia, anger and aggression, visual and auditory delusions, memory loss, and other psychosis symptoms. At the beginning of November, I began requesting a transfer to a long-term treatment facility. They'd be better equipped to fully stabilize her and teach her about her condition. And hopefully we could get her back to living as normal life as possible. Unfortunately, I found out that most of the state hospitals had been shut down. And what there is available is there's a very long waiting list for them, or they're private facilities that cost over $18,000 a month. The insurance companies only allow short-term stays for no longer than 90 days, pushing her out and that forced her to be discharged before she was ready. My wife and I, we had to safeguard our home and prepare for the worst. I put double cylinder locks on all the entry doors, locking doorknobs on our bedroom and the laundry room, and installed cabinet and drawer locks on all the cabinets, the drawers, the refrigerator, and installed a camera system. On November 18th, she was discharged from St. John's with an unspecified psychosis. We brought her home, and the basis for their discharge was she had not been aggressive with the staff or tried to get off the floor within 72 hours. She was still having bouts of catatonia, severe memory loss. She was drooling constantly, and on Thanksgiving Day, she ended up urinating on herself and refused to shower and was refusing to take her meds. On November 25th, we took her back to the emergency room and she was sent to Pontiac General. She was discharged on December 8th, a bit more lucid, but still not even close to back to herself. We tried letting her go home, hoping that being around her fiance and kids would help her bring her out of this, but that was the furthest thing from the truth. On December 12th, I was called by Eric saying that Chelsea had tried to jump out of the truck while they were on their way home from the grocery store. And I drove down Van Born, got with them, and held Chelsea down uh, until first responders could arrive. And she said that the reason she tried to jump out of the truck was that people were doing things to her that she didn't want done. The only people in the truck were her fiance and her 2 children, the 2 younger boys at the time. After that, I began carrying handcuffs, and I took a taser course, and now I carry a taser while she's home. She was then transferred to Harbor Oaks on December 15th, and she was placed on a co-ed floor. She was still very delusional, and she was having delusions that one of the male patients on the floor was her fiance. She was found in bed having sex with that male patient later. We currently have a lawsuit against them right now for that. January 11th of 2023, she was discharged with a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, and she returned to our home again. She was still having visual and auditory delusions. Her memory was hit and miss. She still had moments of catatonia, and she'd be up and down all night coming to our bedroom door every half hour to an hour. She had no idea why she was there, and I'd redirect her back to bed. Sometimes she'd be at our door with no shirt on. Both my wife and I began getting glares, which put us on guard. On January 28th, my wife went in to get a shower, and Chelsea came up to my footstool and just glaring at me, and she told me 3 times that I wasn't going to win as she got closer to me. I hollered for my wife to come in, and she came in. Chelsea backed down. We called 911, and she was safely taken to Dearborn Emergency Room. But when she got there, she ended up attacking the staff and had to be restrained. She was transferred to Stonecrest, and after she was stabilized from Stonecrest, we tried to find a middle ground and maybe make sure she was a little more stable. So we had her transferred to Oakdale Crisis Residential Facility, and it was supposed to be a step before her discharge, and it really didn't do her much good. So on May 25th of 2023, we had her discharged and then brought her back to our home again. Her 5th hospitalization was on July 11th, where she got sent to Beaumont Taylor after removing her clothes and coming towards me when her fiance came over for a visit. Just both of us being there sent her into an episode for some reason, and she just started removing her clothes and apologizing and saying, "I'm sorry, Eric. I'm sorry, Eric." And that was the first time we had to handcuff my daughter. On July 8th, she was transferred from Pontiac General. This was the worst experience of them all. It took me 4 days to get it straight. For them having guardianship, which they already had, of me having guardianship of Chelsea, which they already had on record from prior hospitalization. I ended up having to drive up there, and they didn't even ask me for the guardianship paperwork. All of a sudden, it was just miraculously fixed. Chelsea was placed on a co-ed floor again, and she was still having catatonic episodes. She ended up getting sexually assaulted by a male patient during one of her catatonic episodes. And we currently have a lawsuit against Pontiac General for that incident as well. She was discharged on September 20th, and we tried placing her in a group home in Detroit. On October 10th, she exited the group home, removing her clothes and walking down the street, which resulted in her 6th hospitalization. The resident there called 911, ran down the street, got her back in the house, and got her clothed before the first responders could arrive. And she was taken to Beaumont Behavioral Health. On October 20th, she was discharged and brought back to the group home. She was doing exceptionally well this time, so around November 16th, we allowed her to return back home to her fiance and kids. And again, that was another mistake. On November 23rd, I got a call from her fiance again that she was walking around the house having an episode. At the time, my father was down here, so my dad and I got in my truck and went over there and helped her get in the house. And as we approached the front door, she began taking off her shirt. I got her shirt, pulled her shirt back down, and she didn't try taking off her clothes again. We kept her in the living room until first responders could arrive, and I went out and talked to the officers, and they took her to the Team Wellness Crisis Unit. She was there from the 23rd to the 25th, when she was supposed to be coming home to me. They arranged transportation to bring her down to me, and she ended up having an episode. She started removing her clothes in the back seat, and the driver noticed what was going on, slowed down, and tried to get as far over as he could before she jumped out. She ended up jumping out of the vehicle at about 50 miles an hour, ended up with some road rash on her back and a small cut on the back of her head. And she was discharged on December 8th of 2023, and I brought her back to our home again. And this most recent hospitalization was on December 11th. She was having another episode of trying to remove her clothes and leave the house. When my wife and I tried to get her to put her clothes back on, she began getting aggressive with us and pushing us away from her, and we had to handcuff her again for the second time. We waited for first responders to arrive, and they took her to Garden City Hospital for further treatment, which is where she's at now. And that is what we've been dealing with since August 20th of 2022 to right now. Please find our Facebook page at Am I the Chelsea Project, or find our group on Facebook as well. Thank you.